The first sign something was wrong was the automated text from my bank. Unusual activity detected on account ending 4732. Please verify these transactions. I was halfway through my morning coffee, reviewing architectural plans for a downtown renovation project, when the message arrived. I tapped through to my banking app and froze. My primary savings account, which had contained $187,452 just yesterday, now showed a balance of $212.47. A series of transfers, all processed within the last 12 hours, had systematically emptied the account I'd spent 8 years building. My hands remained steady as I scrolled through the transaction history, each transfer revealing the same destination: my mother's personal account, which had apparently been emptied almost immediately after receiving my funds. I set my phone down carefully and walked to the window of my apartment, looking out at the Boston skyline while processing what this meant. My mother, who had recently asked for my login information, just in case something happens to you, honey, had cleaned me out and disappeared. The timing couldn't have been worse, or perhaps better, depending on perspective. In just 3 days, the reading of my grandfather's will would make official what family insiders already knew. I was set to inherit his substantial estate, valued at approximately $4.3 million. My mother had stolen my life savings and fled, not knowing I was about to become a millionaire several times over. I returned to my desk, opened my laptop, and created a new folder titled Recovery. Inside it, I started a document listing every fact I knew with certainty and every question that needed answering. The facts were few, the questions numerous. But one thing was absolutely clear: this betrayal would not stand. My name is Ethan Caldwell, 34 years old, lead architect at Bristol Design Associates, where I specialize in historical renovations across New England. I've built my reputation on attention to detail, methodical planning, and the ability to solve complex structural problems while preserving historical integrity. Those same skills, patience, precision, strategic thinking, have defined my personal life as well, allowing me to rebuild after my father's sudden death when I was 19, support my younger brother through college, and navigate a complicated relationship with my mother, whose charm always masked deeper instabilities. My relationship with my mother, Diane, had always been tumultuous. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her presence or destroy it with her temper. Charming, beautiful, but fundamentally unpredictable. My father had provided stability until his heart attack 15 years ago. After his death, I'd stepped into the role of family anchor, helping raise my brother, managing family finances and containing the damage from my mother's periodic crises, maxed credit cards, impulsive career changes, volatile relationships. Despite this history, I'd maintained a cautious relationship with her, setting boundaries while still offering support. When she announced 6 months ago that she was reinventing herself with a spiritual retreat in Bali, I'd been cautiously supportive. The trip seemed reasonable, a 2-week meditation program that might finally help her find some peace. I even helped her budget for the experience, unaware this was just the setup for a much larger deception. 2 weeks before the Bali trip, my grandfather, my father's father, had passed away at 92. Harold Caldwell had built a successful construction company from nothing, eventually expanding into real estate development across Massachusetts. He'd remained sharp until the end, updating his will just months before his death. As his only direct descendants, my brother and I were his primary heirs, with the bulk of the estate coming to me as the eldest grandson who had followed him into the building industry. My mother knew about my grandfather's death, of course, but not about the inheritance. Harold had never approved of her, viewing her as fundamentally irresponsible. The feeling was mutual. She'd referred to him as the old miser throughout my childhood, convinced he could have made my father's life easier with financial support. What she didn't know, what my father had never told her, was that Harold had been quietly funding my education, and later my brother's, channeling support through my father, and then directly to us after his death, always with the understanding that Diane shouldn't know the source. Now, scrolling through my emptied bank accounts, I realized my mistake. I'd mentioned helping her set up international banking access for her retreat in case of emergencies. And in doing so, I'd inadvertently given her the keys to everything. The night before her scheduled departure, she'd systematically transferred my entire savings to her account, then apparently moved it elsewhere immediately. A quick check of her social media showed no recent activity. Her phone went straight to voicemail. The bank's fraud department was sympathetic, but not immediately helpful. These transfers were authorized using your correct login credentials and approved with your authentication app, the representative explained. Since the initial transfer was to another authorized user on your account, it doesn't immediately trigger our fraud systems. I remained calm during the call, methodically gathering information rather than venting frustration. Emotions would cloud judgment. I needed clarity. By the end of the conversation, I'd confirmed several important details. The money had moved from my mother's account to a new account at an international bank within minutes of leaving mine. The trail grew cold there, at least through regular banking channels. Hanging up, I added these facts to my growing document, then made 3 calls in rapid succession. First to Dennis Harrison, my personal attorney, explaining the situation and requesting an emergency meeting. Second to my brother Ryan, now a physician in Chicago, bringing him up to speed on our mother's actions. Third, to Eric Newell, a former college roommate who now worked for a specialized cybersecurity firm focusing on financial crimes. Ryan's reaction balanced shock and resigned understanding. Jesus, Ethan, she's really done it this time. Then, after a pause, you don't think she knows about the inheritance, do you? No, I said confidently. Grandpa Harold kept her completely out of the loop, and the official reading is still 3 days away. This is just opportunistic. What are you going to do? What I always do, I replied. Solve the problem methodically. Within hours, I'd assembled what I thought of as my recovery team. Dennis would handle legal aspects, including filing necessary reports and preparing for the upcoming will reading. Eric would trace the digital trail as far as possible. Ryan would monitor any communication from our mother through family channels. I would coordinate everything while continuing to function normally at work. The substantial renovation project I was leading couldn't be neglected, even during a personal crisis. The initial investigation yielded several key insights. Eric confirmed that the money had been transferred to a bank in Singapore, then immediately dispersed across multiple accounts in different countries, a sophisticated laundering technique that suggested either advanced planning or outside help. Dennis discovered that my mother had quietly filed for a passport renewal 3 months earlier and had recently closed her modest retirement account, incurring substantial penalties in the process. Ryan found that she had told several friends different stories about her planned absence, a spiritual retreat to some, a potential job opportunity to others, a new relationship to a few. Most revealing was what I found in her apartment when I used my emergency key to check on her cat, which she'd actually dropped at a boarding facility before disappearing. Hidden in a folder labeled Tax Documents 2018 was a brochure for property in Bali, not retreat centers, but residential villas. Also present was a handwritten list of figures that, when totaled, roughly matched the amount she'd taken from my accounts plus her retirement savings and estimated value of her sold possessions. The picture became clear. My mother had been planning this exit for months, methodically setting up her escape while pretending everything was normal. The spiritual retreat was merely cover for a permanent relocation, funded by my life savings. The list of property prices suggested she intended to purchase a home in Bali and establish a new life there. I updated my recovery document with these findings, then developed a 3-phase strategy. Phase 1 would focus on locating her precisely and understanding her current situation. Phase 2 would involve leveraging legal channels to recover my funds. Phase 3 would address the longer-term implications, including how to handle her potential return or continued absence in light of my impending inheritance. For Phase 1, I authorized Eric to employ more sophisticated tracking methods, operating in legal gray areas, but stopping short of anything explicitly unlawful. I don't need to know details, I told him. Just find her. I also hired a private investigator with experience in international cases, providing everything we knew about her movements and intentions. While waiting for results, I attended the reading of my grandfather's will as scheduled. The details were exactly as expected. The bulk of the $4.3 million estate divided between my brother and me, with me receiving approximately $3.2 million based on my direct involvement in the industry Harold had loved. The inheritance would take several weeks to process legally, but an initial distribution of $250,000 would be available within days. That evening, I received the first solid lead. Eric had traced activity on my mother's Netflix account, accessed through a VPN, but triangulated to a general location in central Bali. Hours later, the private investigator narrowed this further, identifying social media posts from a Balinese real estate agent proudly showcasing a lovely American client settling into her beautiful new villa. The photos carefully angled to showcase the property rather than my mother, but one reflection in a decorative mirror showing enough of her profile to confirm her identity. She's negotiating to purchase a villa in the Ubud area, the investigator reported. Asking price is approximately $320,000 USD. She's presented herself as a widow receiving an insurance settlement. With her location confirmed, I moved to Phase 2. Dennis prepared legal documents for international asset recovery, while I authorized the private investigator to deliver a precisely crafted message, a formal notice of legal action regarding stolen funds delivered directly to her new address. The response came within hours, not to me but to Ryan, whom she apparently believed would be more sympathetic. "Your brother is being ridiculous," her message read. "This was my retirement, money that your father always promised me. I've simply taken what I deserve after all these years of struggling. Ethan can afford it with his fancy job. Please tell him to stop these aggressive tactics." Ryan forwarded the message immediately. "Classic mom," he commented, "rewriting history and playing the victim." Indeed, the money had been entirely mine, savings accumulated through careful investing and living below my means while building my architectural career. My father had left only modest life insurance, most of which had gone toward completing Ryan's education. The narrative about promised retirement was entirely fictional, a self-justifying story she likely now believed. I didn't respond to her message directly. Instead, I authorized the next step, formal notification to Balinese authorities regarding international financial fraud, along with documentation showing the money used for her property purchase was stolen. Dennis assured me that while international legal proceedings would be complex, the clear paper trail and significant amount would ensure serious attention. Most importantly, he advised, we need to prevent her from selling any property purchased with your funds. That gives us leverage for negotiation. 3 days later, my mother finally contacted me directly, not with remorse, but with indignation. "Why are you doing this to me?" she demanded via email. "I raised you by myself after your father died. I sacrificed everything. This money is owed to me." I replied with uncharacteristic directness. "You took 187,239 by 53 files from my personal accounts without permission. This constitutes theft under U.S. law and international banking regulations. I have initiated legal proceedings to recover these funds. We can resolve this simply. Return the money immediately and legal action will be suspended." Her response revealed both panic and calculation. "I can't return it. I've spent most of it already on this property. It's a good investment. I could sell it in a few years and pay you back." "That's not acceptable," I replied. "The funds were taken without permission and must be returned. If necessary, the property can be liquidated immediately." What followed was 2 weeks of increasingly desperate communications. My mother attempted various strategies: emotional manipulation, "After all I've done for you," minimization, "It's just money, not worth destroying our relationship," and finally threats: "If you pursue this, I'll never speak to you again." Throughout, I maintained the same calm, methodical approach that had defined my professional success. I documented every communication, continued working with legal authorities in both countries, and proceeded with receiving my inheritance, the initial $250,000 distribution arriving as scheduled, with the remainder to follow after standard probate procedures. The turning point came when Balinese authorities responding to the formal complaints filed through proper diplomatic channels, froze the property transaction, and informed my mother she was under investigation for financial fraud. Suddenly facing potential criminal charges in a foreign country, her tone changed dramatically. "I've made a terrible mistake," she wrote. "I was desperate and not thinking clearly. Please help me resolve this without ruining my life." Rather than responding with recrimination, I outlined a straightforward resolution. She would sign legal documents acknowledging the theft, transfer the property rights to me, and return any remaining funds immediately. In exchange, I would withdraw criminal complaints once restitution was complete. "What about me?" she asked. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's a separate discussion," I replied. "First, we resolve the financial issue completely." 2 days later, she signed the necessary documents. The villa, which she had been in the process of purchasing but hadn't fully paid for, would become my property, with the difference between its value and my stolen funds to be repaid through a structured payment plan. She would return to the US within 30 days or face continued legal consequences. When the paperwork was complete, I finally addressed her personal situation. "I'll arrange for a modest apartment when you return. You'll need to find employment. There will be structured support but not unrestricted access to funds." "You'd make your own mother live in poverty?" she accused. "No," I replied. "I'm offering stability with accountability. The alternative is legal consequences for financial theft." As these arrangements progressed, the full probate of my grandfather's estate completed. The timing was almost poetic. As my mother reluctantly prepared to return to a life of financial accountability, I received the full inheritance that would have made her theft unnecessary had she simply waited and maintained an honest relationship. 3 weeks later, I met my mother at Boston Logan International Airport. She looked smaller somehow, the confident facade replaced by genuine uncertainty. No warm embrace, no tearful reunion, just awkward recognition of our new reality. "The apartment is ready," I said, leading her to my car. "It's near the community college, which has a job placement program I've arranged for you to meet with tomorrow." She nodded silently, then finally asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her. "How will I survive on what you're allowing me? It's barely enough for necessities." "It's what millions of Americans live on successfully," I noted. "And it's temporary, a pathway to self-sufficiency, not a permanent arrangement." After a long silence, she spoke again. "Ryan mentioned something about an inheritance. From your grandfather?" "Yes," I confirmed without elaboration. "Is it substantial?" I considered my response carefully. "Substantial enough that had you simply asked for help rather than stealing from me, a different arrangement might have been possible." The implications settled between us as we drove through the city. I felt no satisfaction in her discomfort, no vindication in her regret, just the quiet certainty that patterns could be broken, that my methodical approach to problems extended to family dynamics as well as architectural challenges. The villa in Bali, now legally mine, became a rental property managed by a local agency, generating income that would eventually recover my stolen savings. My mother began the slow process of rebuilding her life within the structured support system I'd established, with supervision from a financial manager who reported directly to me. My inheritance allowed me to launch my own architectural firm, specializing in sustainable renovations of historical properties, something I'd dreamed of but had been years away from attempting before my grandfather's bequest. 6 months after her return, my mother asked to meet for coffee outside our normal scheduled financial review. She seemed different, more grounded, less performatively charming. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said without preamble, "trying to understand why I did what I did." I nodded, waiting. "The therapist thinks I have some narcissistic tendencies," she continued with surprising self-awareness. "I always felt entitled to more than I had, always believed others owed me something." She looked down at her coffee. "Especially you, after your father died. I resented that you were stronger than me, more capable. Taking your money was about punishment as much as greed." It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. Not a full reconciliation, not complete redemption, but perhaps the beginning of something more authentic than the manipulative dance that had defined our relationship. For years. Thank you for telling me this, I said simply. As I walked her back to her apartment, a modest but comfortable space she was now maintaining responsibly, she asked about the Bali villa. It's doing well, I said. Fully booked through high season. She nodded, then surprised me. You should use it sometime. It's actually quite beautiful. I chose well, even if the method was wrong. I considered this. Maybe. Someday. My mother emptied my life savings and escaped overseas, unaware I was set to inherit millions. The irony wasn't lost on me, but neither was the opportunity it presented. Not just financial recovery, but a fundamental reset of patterns that had been destructive for both of us. In architecture, sometimes the most damaged structures can be salvaged not by patching over weaknesses, but by exposing them completely, addressing the fundamental issues, and rebuilding with proper supports. As it turns out, the same principle applies to rebuilding trust, not through sentimentality or rug sweeping, but through clear-eyed assessment, accountability, and methodical reconstruction of what was broken. The inheritance provided security, but the betrayal provided clarity. Both, in their way, were gifts that enabled something neither my mother nor I had anticipated: the possibility of an honest relationship built on reality rather than manipulation, on boundaries rather than exploitation. Not the relationship either of us had imagined, perhaps, but potentially stronger than what had existed before, like a renovated building with its historical character intact, but its foundation finally secure.